Hi, hello, Vinny and Dragon here, and welcome. Now, we're going to be doing a bit of a different video today. Today, I asked for your Pokemon hot takes. This is a series where I go over some people's hot takes about Pokemon in my community and along with some of my other friends, so be sure to subscribe and check out the whole series. I'm going to be doing this pretty often. If you want to submit your own hot takes, you could do so in the comment section of this video, the YouTube community tab, or you could follow my Twitter, which will all be linked in the description, so be sure to post whatever your dumb, stupid opinions are, and I'll be sure to react to it in the next video. Alright, now the first hot take is one I actually agree with. I don't get why people think Gardevoir is hot. Now, I agree. I think that a lot of fan art and stuff sexualizes Gardevoir in like a weird manner, and I just think that's a little weird. There are like a few Pokemon who are humanoid enough to the point where it's like, okay, that's fine, I guess, but Gardevoir really just has nothing to it. It is just like a dress with like a weird leaf as a head, and I feel like people just oversell it. However, I mean, this isn't that hot of a take anymore. I feel like people have grown past the Gardevoir phase of the internet, to put it lightly. So yeah, I mean, I agree with this take. Next up, Gen 8 and 9's move pools are trash. I disagree with this. I think that a lot of Pokemon are balanced in Gen 8 and 9 by having bad move pools, but I mean, when you give certain Pokemon the spotlight, you can see that they actually do have very diverse move pools, even with the cut moves. And if you're just looking at like specifically in Gen 8 and 9 and not just national decks, I mean, they still have very diverse move pools. You have things like Great Tusk getting Rapid Spin, which is definitely interesting. I mean, overall, there are Pokemon who do have diverse move pools. I think Iron Valiant's another interesting Pokemon who has a ton of move pool diversity. I think that you're sort of focusing on things like Regieleki and Iron Bundle, but overall, I wouldn't say that like Gen 8 and 9 Pokemon like have bad move pools, at least not compared to like the early generations like Gen 1 through 3. I think those move pools are just objectively the worst. So like, I don't know. I personally wouldn't agree with this. Someone's gotta say it, Charizard isn't that cool. B tier. I do agree with this. I think that Charizard is a Pokemon that's very iconic and very well loved, but in terms of just actual base design, if it came out today, it wouldn't really be all that recognizable or interesting. It's got very weird and clunky proportions. I've never really been a fan of the way Charizard is proportioned. I mean, he's got very tiny arms and like a rotund sort of hip situation, and I really don't like Charizard's design that much. I think Mega Charizard X is very, very cool. I think that Mega Charizard Y even has its merits. I think that like overall a lot of its anime appearances are cool, but like I think that if you just put Charizard in the Gen 9 Pokedex, nobody's talking about it. I think B tier is actually even a bit much for it. I think C tier would be more accurate. Next up, it makes sense that Volcarona and Arcanine aren't legendary because the only times they were seen as legendary was likely back before Pokeballs, and thus were likely only interpreted as such due to them being fire wielders. Perhaps in Arcanine's case, it was just a loyal companion to some ruler. I agree with this. I think Volcarona and Arcanine are like perceived as legendaries by like kids and like by misconception, and then when people grow up, they try to justify it in any way they can. Like, Arcanine, it was very clear that, like, there was some weird intention going on, but they clearly were like, no, it's better if this Pokemon isn't a legendary, and I agree. Arcanine just has no legendary qualities about it, other than it just being, like, imposing and, like, a Pokemon that has a lot of stories behind it, but, like, tons of Pokemon in the Pokemon world can do exactly what Arcanine can and like have the same sort of lore behind it, so I really do agree that Arcanine isn't a legendary Pokemon. Volcarona is a bit more interesting because Volcarona is a lot rarer. However, I do think that Volcarona still shouldn't be a legendary because, again, it doesn't have like extraordinary power that a regular Pokemon wouldn't have. It is still, there's still multiple of them. Alder has one. Like, it's still not super, super rare in lore. It is rare, but it's not like legendary rare. And overall, I think that just people are like misconceited from the fact that they are clearly like rarer and more powerful than regular Pokemon, but they are not legendary. Like, Lucario is not a legendary. It is rare, it is powerful, and it's clearly favored by Game Freak, but it is not a legendary. There is a very big difference. When there is no generational gimmick, competitive Pokemon is objectively a more fun game to play. I disagree. I think that there are certain generational gimmicks that you could take out of Pokemon and they would be better off. I think Dynamax in singles is one of those instances. I think Z moves in both singles and doubles is one of those instances. However, I think that most metagames do actually benefit from their regional gimmicks. So, like, for example, Megas. I think that Megas haven't really been bad in any format. I think that they're kind of annoying, and I do, like, sometimes wish that we had other gimmicks. But, like, overall, Megas do provide something to Pokemon, especially in singles. In doubles, they're a bit more annoying. But, like, in singles, I think that Megas do provide a lot. And Gen 6 without Megas would be a very different game, and one that I don't think I would enjoy, like, at all. I don't think there'd be any merit to Gen 6 if it never had any Mega Evolution. I think that it'd just be objectively way less interesting. Z moves, I 100% agree. I think Dynamax, it made Gen 8 competitive. I think that Gen 8 competitive will be a lot less interesting without Dynamax. I think that there's a lot of Pokemon who just wouldn't see the spotlight that it saw without Dynamax. And then I agree with Terra as well. Terra buffs a lot of Pokemon that usually wouldn't see spotlight. It allows a lot of counterplay and a lot of interesting sets and stuff like that. I think that Terra is a very, very fun mechanic. I think that it could be kind of annoying sometimes, and it could be kind of, like, underwhelming sometimes compared to the previous ones like Z-Moves, Max, and Megas. However, Terra is just objectively, I think, more fun than the base game. I think that when you look at, like, how fun certain games are, obviously, like, you have to think about it. Like, would Gen 9, if it had no regional gimmick, be as fun as it is right now? Granted, there's a Gen 9 being fun is its own conversation, but, like, at the fun level that Gen 9 is right now, do you think Terra would lower it or increase it? I think that, like, getting rid of Terra would lower the enjoyment of Gen 9. I think so. They should bring elements of old school side games like Coliseum, Mystery Dungeon, Rangers, etc. for a Legends game in the near future. I don't know if this is a hot take. I don't really know how to feel about this, because I personally don't really enjoy most of these side games. Like, I didn't enjoy what I played of Mystery Dungeon, I've never played Rangers, and I've never played Coliseum. But from what I can tell, like, it doesn't really interest me that much, the gameplay elements of these games. Like, I think Mystery Dungeon has its merits potentially. I think that Pokemon Conquest could definitely have some mechanics brought into a more modern Pokemon game. However, overall, I think that Legends Arceus has the most fun gameplay of any side game, if you consider it a side game. So, I don't know. I'm very mixed about this. Power creep is absolutely a problem. Not exactly a hot take, but something not discussed. There are like 4 usable Gen 2 mons in the modern day. I kind of agree. I think that power creep is definitely stronger than it has been in a while. I think Gen 8 and 9 had a lot more power creep than, say, like Gen 7. However, overall, I think that, first of all, the Gen 2 analogy is not a good one, because Gen 2 Pokemon were bad even when they were introduced. I mean, like, genuinely, a lot of Gen 2 Pokemon are just straight up worse than Gen 1 Pokemon, except for the evolutions of Gen 1 Pokemon. So, like, for example, the best Pokemon in Gen 2 is Snorlax, who's a Gen 1 Pokemon, and then the second best one is Mewtwo, who's a Gen 1 Pokemon. So, like, overall, I think that saying Gen 2 isn't exactly a great argument. I think that Game Freak does a lot to sort of help older Pokemon out, like Gen 1 diversity move pools and stuff. There are some Gen 1 Pokemon left to dry, but, like, overall, they do a lot of things to help these Pokemon out. And overall, I don't think that power creep is necessarily making the game less fun. There are a ton of new Pokemon who are all getting their own unique abilities and unique moves that make them completely different from one another, that overall helps me enjoy the game a lot more. Because, I mean, you say that power creep is a problem, but, like, think about if Quaquaval didn't get Aqua Step and, like, didn't have its super min-max stat spread, it was just like Blaziken but a water type. I mean, no one would care. Like, overall, I think if without power creep, the games would just be less fun, and with the way that metagames work on stuff in Smogon, I think that it's not exactly a massive problem, because you could just ban the things that you don't want to play with and stuff, so I don't know. I'm very mixed about this as well. Well, hot take based on the previous conversation, but Monotype and most of the other semi-gimmicky formats are more interesting to play than Anything Goes. No. I don't like Anything Goes that much. I think that Anything Goes is like a bit of a step in the wrong direction. I think that Ubers is kind of where I'm at. Anything Goes sometimes can just be really, really annoying from what I've played. But I hate monotype. I think monotype's very, very annoying and boring. And I think that, like, I mean, semi-gimmicky formats, it just kind of depends. Like, almost any ability is a semi-gimmicky format that I enjoy, so I guess, like, that one, I'll say, yeah, better than anything goes. Hack mods is a semi-gimmicky format that I think is nowhere near as fun as anything goes, so yeah, sure. I feel like this is kind of mixed, but overall, the one you named being monotype makes me say no. Like, random battles are definitely more interesting to play. Like all these other formats I think are more interesting to play, but monotype is no. I think monotype's definitely a no. Next, OU gets too much attention. I've played tiers like UU and NU, and they're both a lot of fun, and in my opinion, more fun than OU. I wish they got more attention than they do. I half agree. I think UU is definitely better than OU. I think NU is not. I think that overall, OU getting the attention it gets makes sense. OU is just the best Pokemon that are just like not directly unfair is sort of what the tagline for OU is. However, honestly, I feel that way more about Ubers personally. And like overall, I think OU, especially in Gen 9, definitely has its problems. So I'd be more inclined to agree with you. I don't really like super low power formats. I think UU is kind of like my boundary where anything lower than this and I'm just not interested. So I don't know. I'd say I'm mixed about this. I think that definitely I do think that every format should get its love and that more formats should be looked into. So you know what? Sure, I'll agree with this. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. Like I said in the intro, if you want to submit your own hot takes, I have a Twitter. You could also put them in the YouTube comments or the YouTube community tab. I read every comment. I'll make sure to see it, and I'll make sure to put it in the next video. So, peace.